I am kind of going back and forth between different moments in history. Um, I think we sometimes look at American history as if there are two very separate stories, and we all do this. Those who are of European descent in America think of the Revolution, July 4th, 250 years, and they only know that history in the way that history has been taught in America. See, I'm coming as a K-12 educator. Historically, and this is still a struggle today in a lot of spaces, especially evangelical Christian schools, and I'm an evangelical Christian, so I'm saying this not as someone deconstructing anything. I am proudly still evangelical. And why I'm still evangelical is a whole nother video for another day. But I will say this: history has historically been taught in a way where how diverse stories have been part of American history have been erased. So a lot of times people think when they celebrate July 4th, the 250 years celebration, all of that, that's just European Americans' history, and other people have benefited from that as they've come under what our narrative is. But the stories of those who've been a part of that have been erased. And Black people have also fallen into this because of our frustration of constantly being erased. Oh, I'm not going to celebrate July 4th. I'm celebrating Juneteenth. And we also think it's separate. But history tells us differently. I'm not saying this because I want it to be so. I'm saying it because it is so. And God is a God of truth. I must dwell on truth. And as painful as America's history may be to me as a Black woman, I do believe we sometimes miss the whole story. So I'm telling these stories of emancipation and the Revolutionary War, showing how our lives have been intertwined in making America what it should be. That is the truth. And there's a painting of George Washington. And if you look closely, and I'm going to share it at the end of this video, if you look closely, there's a Black man rowing the boat. And many people have done research to find out who he is. There's a mystery around who he is. But one thing I want you to understand, a lot of these old paintings, we are there. Even if we were enslaved, I hear a lot of people talk a lot about agency. We got to talk about our agency. And a lot of times, those same people that talk about Black agency erase the story of the enslaved people. And these enslaved people were part of America's story. They helped to build America. They basically built America. As you all know, I have a online Christian school, and our offices are located in a really historic area. And there are plaques all around. And this historic area is along a waterfront. And a lot of the streets are cobblestone. And you'll see plaques that say enslaved people built this waterfront town. And there's even a story of oftentimes Black people had to wade out in the water to set the foundations of that town. I wonder sometimes how many of them drowned doing so. So for me to say, and this space where my office is located is very historic. It's very important to America's history. And I often think when I read these plaques, for me to say, this country is not my story, I will not celebrate its birth, I am erasing the story of those who gave their lives to lay the bricks of these streets. So I'm going to celebrate America, but I'm going to tell the story of my ancestors as I do. And I feel like marrying Juneteenth with July 4th is the perfect place to do that. In Juneteenth, let's talk about that. I've heard sometimes a white person will say to me, I don't know why you're celebrating. It was just in Texas. And I feel like how limited your understanding is. You don't even see the big picture. Here is the big picture. Yes, it happened mainly in Texas because that little area refused to comply with the emancipation, with the ending of slavery based on the Civil War. They refused, they didn't even tell their enslaved people that they were free. They kept enslaving people. I feel the story of Juneteenth is not just about a group of Black people in this town in Texas that were set free. It's about, even in all of their flaws, the leaders of America saying, even in their blind spots and traces of white supremacy that still plagued their heart and soul, they had enough conviction to say, we said that when the war is over, every person will be free in this country. And yes, we know that there's this town all the way in Texas that refuses to comply. We are not going to just let these people continue to enslave these people. We care enough about the future of this country to root out this evil thoroughly. That is the story of Juneteenth. It's not just about some group of people in Texas. It's about American leadership saying, we're getting rid of this sin that has plagued our country for centuries. We're getting rid of it once and for all. In all of our imperfections, we don't want any part of this anymore. They could have said, it's just a little town over there all the way in Texas. We'll just keep it there. And the soldiers, I read the story of some of these people who went. I don't feel like any of them were activists for me, but they were committed to the cause of freedom for all people. America is truly supposed to be free for everybody. And so these soldiers, they went all the way to make sure this little group of people who were still enslaved knew they were free, and they set them free. And once and for all, America was free. We still had a lot of work to do. But slavery ended once and for all. They were thorough. Abraham Lincoln and these soldiers committed to this promise were thorough. That is something we should be celebrating as a country. Andrew Johnson threw us in a whole nother bad path, but that's not about this video. This is about enslavement. This is about the sin of treating human beings like less than imago Dei, made in the image of God, by enslaving them and treating them like farm animals. America said, we are rooting this out completely. As an American, you need to be proud of the fact that your country has that in its history. And that there was a president behind it, and there were soldiers behind that. So this Juneteenth is not a black holiday. Juneteenth is an American holiday, and it tells the story of how hard we fight as a country to get in line with who we say we are. You should be celebrating Juneteenth because it is something to be proud of for every person. Now, if you're angry about Juneteenth, are you angry because Black people are celebrating Juneteenth and you feel like they're being divisive? Or are you really angry that we're not enslaved anymore? Because the anger I see from some people when we talk about Juneteenth makes me wonder that it might be a little bit deeper, and that's something you might need to search out in your hearts. Are you angry because slavery was finally rooted out? Because that's what Juneteenth is. It is finally getting rid of every trace of slavery in America. That is Juneteenth. That is something everyone should be celebrating, because slavery hurt all of us, not just my ancestors. It hurt white people too. It hurt their mentality. It hurt their moral code. And when Juneteenth came along, there was a redemption that happened there that freed all of us from the hold this sin had on all of us and made us a divided nation. So we should be celebrating Juneteenth. And then I just keep on celebrating through Juneteenth all the way to July 4th, because now as an American who's experienced watching it be rooted out, I celebrate July 4th because now this vision of the country applies to me. So celebrate Liberation Season with me, starting on June 19th, Juneteenth, take it all the way to July 4th.